Hi, this is 2019 Boxing Hall of Fame Buddy McGirt, two-time world champion, and you listen to the Ringside Boxing Show.
Live from Monterey on California's beautiful Central Coast, this is the Ringside Boxing Show. I'm Dennis Taylor, welcoming you to join me and my expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan, Zahid, and John J. Raspanti today and every week for the hottest, sweatiest show on the West Coast. And now, from Studio 1A, it's the Ringside Boxing Show. Yes, it is. Welcome to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Dennis Taylor, and we've got a whole lot going on today. In just a little bit, John J. Raspanti and I will be talking in depth to Kenny Porter, who, of course, is the trainer, manager, and father of Showtime Shawn Porter, who's got a big fight coming up March 9th on the Fox Network against a very tough Cuban, Yordanis Ugas. We'll get Kenny's take on that. We'll also talk to him about that talent-stacked welterweight division and that infamous televised sit-down he had with Angel Garcia and about bringing up Shawn as a single father, among other things. This is going to be outstanding. Kenny Porter never, ever pulls a punch in an interview, so you're going to want to hang on for that. Paul McLaughlin, our inimitable Brit, will be back to update us on the news in the UK boxing scene, and we're going to start, as we do every week, with a look at some current events with our expert analyst. Travis Hartman is a professional boxer, trainer, and promoter from Osborne, Missouri. He's currently training in Florida to face undefeated Peter Dobson on February 15th in Wichita. Rizwaan Zahid, the boxing journalist from Toronto, and John J. Raspanti is chief lead writer for MaxBoxing.com and DogHouseBoxing.com, and John and I are co-authors of Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Artur Gatti versus Mickey Ward boxing trilogy, which is an Amazon bestseller. Hey, guys, first of all, we saw a relatively rare occurrence on Saturday when a guy that a big portion of the boxing world had written off made it back to the top of the mountain. Sergey Kovalev completely outboxed a fighter who knocked him out and took his titles last August, Eleider Alvarez. So Kovalev is a world champion again, and I'd say he's an early front runner for comeback fighter of the year. And Buddy McGirt, his trainer, is the leader in the clubhouse for trainer of the year. One of the judges, Chuck Giampa, gave Kovalev every round. The other two saw it 8-4 for Kovalev. Travis, do you see this as a return to form by Kovalev, or was Eleider Alvarez kind of a paper tiger who got exposed, or a little of both?
You know, I wouldn't say that Eleider Alvarez was a paper tiger by no means. I think he's a very legit contender, and it just seemed to me that he really didn't let his hands go very much. And for Kovalev returning to the old Kovalev the way he used to be, I don't think so. As you're watching the fight, Max Kellerman actually made a very interesting observation, and he said when Kovalev used to be the bully, Kovalev used to just bully people around and just be fierce and just harsh, and there was a time when Kovalev, I think he hit Eleider Alvarez late, and the referee came in the middle of there and like brought them together, and Kovalev tried to touch the other guy's glove, as in like, you know, hey, I'm sorry, you know, and Eleider didn't even touch it. It was like, no, get away from me, and it just kind of it talked more to the psyche of the new Kovalev, who's not the guy who's just the Krusher anymore. I don't think we can call Kovalev the Krusher anymore, especially how he fought, because he boxed, and he boxed really brilliantly, to be honest. And it seemed like he didn't have a lot on his punches, like the power. I didn't notice the power there as much, but also to me, Eleider Alvarez just looked bigger than Kovalev. Like he's got the broader shoulders, and he looked a lot bigger to me in that fight. But, I mean, every time that Eleider threw some big punches, I actually got a little worried. When I was watching that fight, I was like, every time Eleider let his hands go, I was like, oh, I was kind of cringing for Kovalev. But for 12 rounds, Kovalev literally ate those punches, took them, blocked them, even got caught a couple of times and just came back even stronger, which actually surprised me because a lot of very knowledgeable guys in the sport of boxing thought that Kovalev was shot. And actually there was a guy, I forget his name off the top of my head, but it was in a conversation with Paulie Malignaggi, and they said Kovalev shot, and he said it before the Eleider Alvarez fight. He's like, Kovalev is shot, you guys. He's a shot fighter. Watch, he's going to lose. And he ended up losing. He got knocked out by Eleider Alvarez in their first fight. So we were talking in the boxing gym yesterday about Kovalov's fight coming up, and the guy was like, yeah, he's like, this guy predicted that Kovalov was shot, and it came out and turned out to be right. And he was like, I think he's going to get beat again. I think he's going to get knocked out again. And I was like, I don't know. I have a feeling. I don't know what it is. It's a gut feeling. And I was like, I think that Kovalov's going to pull it off. And what happened? Kovalov came out there and proved all the doubters wrong. He proved Vegas wrong because Vegas had him as an underdog. It wasn't a massive underdog, but he was still the underdog, and Vegas usually gets it right. But they got it wrong, and Kovalov proved, to all of us that, Kovalov is still, I would consider Kovalov about 80 to 85% of who we know him as. I don't think that's 100% Kovalov still. However, an 85% Kovalov, I think, still beats just about everybody in the world right now. And I think that Andre Ward, not that his resume needed it, but I think this just strengthened Andre Ward's resume even that much more, the way that he dismantled Kovalov. So, last night was good. Kovalov showed that he is able to box and move and fight brilliantly and change a little bit. And that's what you have to do in your career. Kovalov's coming to the point in his career where he does have to eventually change a little bit and adapt, to the age now. He is getting a little bit older. He's 35. He's got to change things up a little bit, and he did. And you know what? Props to Buddy McGirt for creating a pathway to change, because I don't think the credit goes to Buddy McGirt. Buddy McGirt's been there for one fight. I don't think the credit goes to Buddy McGirt. I genuinely don't. I think Buddy McGirt was a useful instrument in helping Kovalov get to there, but ultimately I think Kovalov for sure, we didn't see a completely different Kovalov. We've seen a more focused Kovalov. We've seen a more smart Kovalov, and that was definitely some credit to Buddy McGirt. But guy's 35 years old. He's been fighting his entire life. There's not any coach in the world that is going to come in there and turn an entire career around and change everything. And Buddy McGirt didn't do that. Buddy McGirt was a fine instrument into helping that. But at the end of the day, Kovalov did what he did because he's Sergey Kovalev, and I think he's going to go down as one of the great light heavyweights.
Okay, well, this is we were talking about this just before we came on the air, David. This is why I got you three guys on the show. All three of you guys kind of saw this coming, and I didn't. What makes this remarkable to me is that Kovalev seemed completely focused before this fight. He was mentally ready to fight and win, despite the fact that a woman announced earlier in the week that she was suing his ass for $8 million for an alleged assault. He's also facing criminal charges for that same incident. That's a hard thing to compartmentalize, just before a big fight like that. It's a lot to have on your mind when another guy is trying to beat your brains in. How much credit, Riz, do you think McGirt deserves for this, if any?
I think he did I think it's an addition by subtraction. I think he did a lot by not, like Travis was saying, a lot of fighters or a lot of trainers, at this point, Kovalev's not going to learn anything new. I don't think Buddy McGirt was trying to teach him anything new. I think he was just trying to get him back to his basics, hide more of his weaknesses, and if anything else, just make him, what he was before. I think maybe there's some aspects in more discipline in his training and all that, because Kovalev looked very strong in round 12, which was, he stated a few times in later rounds in other fights. That's why I noticed a difference. Plus, I never thought Kovalev's never looked out of focus to me for any fight. You got to remember the rematch against Andre Ward. I mean, we talked about it before that fight. He was a hard luck fighter, right? Everything against him in that rematch. Everything went against him in that first fight because a lot of people still thought he won. In the rematch, everything went against him. He had he got repeated low blows landed. He had a trainer who said the price wasn't high enough for him to walk to the other side, which is still something I've never possibly heard of before. So essentially, he was going up against, and we still don't know what information, if any, was actually shared to Ward's side. So we don't. So Kovalev pretty much won in that fight by himself. But he was still, if you remember watching that fight, I think he was still up on 1 or 2 scorecards, but he was still landing and outboxing Ward in certain spots. Kovalev, even though he's been a crazy knockout puncher, he's always had supreme boxing skills. So just not surprised that he was able to kind of shut out some of the distractions. And especially now we're getting a little more of the story, and it seems like it could be fabricated. It's too early to tell. But he's always been he's always had great fundamentals. I think the one thing that surprised me more than anything else is I'm surprised he changed trainers, because it seemed like when he switched trainers, it seemed like he got along really well with his former trainer. And then the knockout against Alvarez, I mean, maybe it's just a knee-jerk reaction, but I think Buddy McGirt has always been a very fighter-friendly trainer. And by that I mean fighters trust him. I've never heard anyone really say any bad things about Buddy McGirt. He's always had people's respect. I remember him, I want to say it was Vasilly and Monty Barrett. This is going back like at least 10 years ago. And Barrett was hurt, and he was getting knocked down left, right, and center. The ref wouldn't stop the fight. Buddy McGirt jumped in the ring right before like Val was about to throw another shot. So pretty much sacrificed, got in the way in between a punch to make sure that his fighter didn't have to take another shot. And you just don't see that as much, right? And I mean, if we're looking at let's look at the undercard, the Teofimo Lopez fight. That fight should have been stopped. That fight should have been stopped 30 seconds or a minute before that. I didn't see any trainer moving there, right? So Buddy McGirt has always had. I don't think any fighter's ever said I don't like Buddy McGirt. So it says that really it always spoke to me. Plus, but here's the whole other side. How good is Eleider Alvarez? Because I've seen him fight. I saw him fight against Chilemba. And Buddy McGirt worked the Chilemba corner, and he said, so he's already seen Alvarez from a trainer standpoint. So maybe he saw something that makes it winnable. Alvarez also he had a close decision against Chilemba. He had a close decision against Pascal. Butte is obviously not what he was. And so Alvarez, I've seen really good parts of him. But I've also seen some parts where he just doesn't look, he doesn't look great. Now, Travis is absolutely right. He's a massive dude. I saw him. He was at the Stevenson Badou Jack fight here in Toronto back in last May, I think it was. And I was walking beside him and chatting with him. He at that point, I mean, he was probably 210 pounds easily. And not, he definitely had a little extra weight on him, but a lot of it was muscle. He's just a massive dude. But we don't know where he's ever kind of stood in that division. Because the last fight against Kovalev, he was losing. People forget that. We all remember the knockout, but I think at that point he won maybe one round. So if you're looking at the 19 rounds that they fought, I think he might have won between 2 and 5. It's just the one he won in absolutely devastating fashion with the 3 knockdowns. So it's too early to say where Kovalev stands, at least in my eyes. I think Bivol. I think there's so many Gvozdyk. I think there's so much other talent in that division that all these guys I think are better than Alvarez. Are they better than Kovalev? Maybe not necessarily, but I want to see Kovalev against those guys and Beterbiev. And Kovalev, I'll say this about him: he's never shied away from fighting top guys. Like he's always tried to do as best as he could to fight the A+ level fighters, whether it's Ward. Even Hopkins. I mean, if you remember what he did to Hopkins was still, we never saw that. He was outboxing Bernard Hopkins. So people sometimes forget just how good he was. And again, the Ward fight, how both those fights could have been completely different. I mean, it looks good on Ward's resume, but again, many will still argue that Kovalev won the first fight. And the second fight, he had his trainer. He pretty much was out without a trainer that entire fight. And before that fight, I mean, think about in between rounds. How do you listen to your cornerman? And I don't know what instructions he's telling you, but how do you listen to him when you know that like you are this close to leaving and working the other corner? Yeah. Right? I mean, he's went through a lot, and so I mean, I don't think anyone is I don't think anyone's going to say Kovalev's not a jerk. He seems kind of like an oddball, but no one's ever denied that he's a great fighter. Now he's 35, so was this a good win or a great win? I don't think. You're right. Early candidate for comeback of the year, but his next fight might completely derail that. So it's a little early to tell, but it was a good win, and he needed this because I think this was a win or go home kind of fight.
Yeah, Dennis, what I will say that Buddy McGirt did do, though, is Buddy McGirt, I think Andre Ward actually touched on this, and this is what I think Buddy McGirt added to the Kovalev training, and this was he didn't overtrain Kovalev. And I believe Kovalev now, when Kovalev was telling people that he thought he was overtrained for the last fight, and I think it's ringing true because at 35 years old, that's what I'm talking about. You have to adapt and change your overall training because you are getting a little older and you don't have to necessarily do 50 more rounds sparring. You don't need that much. And they said that Kovalev is a very sharp fighter, within like 4 weeks of a training camp. He doesn't need like an 8-week training camp. And I think the before guys were just making Kovalev go hard, and he was overtraining, which I think you see in a lot of professional athletes, not just boxing, but in a lot of sports. people tend to overtrain and overdo it. And I think that's what Buddy McGirt brought to the Kovalev camp. I think Buddy McGirt was like, sometimes less is more. And I think it showed, and it proved that Kovalev looked like he had plenty in the tank for 12 rounds. And I think that's probably the most pivotal thing that I think that Buddy McGirt added to this camp was he pulled him back a little bit during training and didn't overtrain him, and I think it showed.
That's interesting. And John, you had the guts to place a bet on Kovalev. I mean, here's a guy who's eating top ramen for dinner, and he bets on an underdog. You know, and what these guys are just saying, an issue with Kovalev in the past has been supposedly conditioning. He's always seemed to wear out in the second half of a fight. Now he's 35 years old. Last night he outlanded Alvarez in 11 out of the 12 rounds, and he threw 78 punches in the 12th round, which was his second highest total of the fight. He threw 105 in the 7th round. But yeah, this guy's 35. Who the hell saw that coming, considering his history? And you went out there and you bet $3 on him. Come on, man.
Yeah, I know that was really risky of me to do that, but I actually felt that confident. I when I was watching the ESPN guys talking, and they were all talking about Alvarez winning. This is what you do when you're alone a lot. I said to the TV, you know what? I think you guys got it all wrong, except Tim Bradley. I just think Kovalev's going to win it. He's going to win tonight, and it was just a bunch of things. Travis and Riz pretty much touched on it, but I just felt like he wasn't done yet. That was the main thing, and he can box well, and I actually think Buddy McGirt deserves more credit than he in a sense, because if you guys remember watching this, and I've watched a number of Kovalev fights, he would listen to his trainer before, but he was really focused on what Buddy McGirt was saying last night. He was looking right into his eyes. So to me, that meant that he really respects Buddy McGirt, and Buddy McGirt was calling him champ, and you're doing good. And it might sound kind of funny, but there's a little psychobabble talk here, but I think he kind of needed all that after what happened to him. Even though he kept saying it was an accident, in a sense it was, but you need to be, in a sense, Buddy McGirt had built him back up to where Kovalev felt good about himself. And then what Travis touched on was also right on the money, was that Buddy McGirt said in an article that he would stop Kovalev and go, okay, that's enough for the day, and he would know what Kovalev was thinking. He would know that Kovalev would want to keep going, and instead of saying, okay, I'll see you tomorrow, this is Buddy McGirt talking, he'd wait to make sure that Kovalev went home with him or went back to the hotel or wherever they were staying. Yeah. Because that's Kovalev's tendency, is to work. And that can be a sign of insecurity or whatever. But I think Kovalev learned, and a lot of guys that have had all that success, you could see them going, hey, trainer, you're just a trainer. I don't need you to tell me anything. So to Kovalev's credit, I give him credit, and I give Buddy McGirt a boatload of credit too for saying, no, that's it for you for today. And Kovalev stuck with the game plan. He did get cracked with some really hard right hands, and I believe that's what Alvarez was thinking. I think Alvarez thought, all I got to do is touch this guy with another big right hand, and he's gone. It's like, it reminded me a little bit of a because we know Alvarez has hand problems, right? And he's not the big puncher that he might have been before. Reminded me of in a baseball of a guy who's a doubles hitter, and he hits a big, massive home run, and suddenly thinks he's a home run hitter, and for the next few weeks he strikes out over and over because he's trying to hit a home run. That was the feeling I kind of got with Alvarez, that he said, I just got to touch him with one of my big rights, and he's gone. And he did. He hit him. I'm like you, Travis, a couple times Kovalev got hit with a few of those overhand rights, and I went, oh, shoot. Yeah. And he might have wobbled maybe once. Yeah, he might have wobbled. His knees might have shook a little bit. He was resilient, and he fought back. And then that's what was really something that a lot of us didn't think Kovalev would do. He fought back, and he actually even stole a few rounds after getting tagged by some right hands. Not so much stole them. He dominated the last minute of the round. So I actually think it was a great win, to be honest, because so many people were saying he was done, he was toast, he was washed up, he was finished. A person I respect online, I'm not going to say his name, said, I didn't even write about this fight because Kovalev's gone. He's wasted. He doesn't have a chance in hell. This is a man I respect a lot. So, and I didn't go on his page and go, what did you say a few days ago about Kovalev?
I told you so.
Yeah, so it's just the thing. I think we get so wrapped up in what the guy did in his last fight sometimes, and that's all we remember. We forget what Riz was talking about. We forget what happened in the Andre Ward fight. We forget that perhaps, Kovalev didn't get where he is by accident. He got where he is because he is one hell of a fighter. So if he still had, this is what the whole thinking was, if he still had something left, and I believe he did, he was going to win. And you know what? People can talk, but he went out there last night and he did it.
Okay, what was so brilliant was his jab last night. His jab kept Alvarez off balance the entire night. I think if we go back and you look, Kovalev threw more jabs than I can remember ever him throwing. He's always had a good jab. He did use it. But honestly, I think that, Eleider Alvarez was trying to do a lot more, but that jab that Kovalev kept landing, Kovalev was even going downstairs, and Kovalev rarely goes downstairs with his jab, and Kovalev was bringing it upstairs, downstairs. I mean, the fact that Kovalev kept that jab in Alvarez's face is why I think that really threw Alvarez off. I don't know if Alvarez was really I know he was obviously trying to knock out Kovalev, but I think he was trying to do a lot more, but Kovalev just had that jab in his face and had him off balance the entire night, which threw him completely off of his game. So I think a lot of credit goes to that jab that Kovalev had as well.
And that's Buddy McGirt again, Travis. Buddy McGirt kept telling him, use that jab, use that jab, use that jab. So there you go.
Okay, so Riz, you brought up a great point, man. What a division right now. There's Kovalev obviously wants unification fights, and there's 3 of them out there for him right now. Artur Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol, and Oleksandr Gvozdyk are all world champions. They're all undefeated. What do you think Kovalev's chances are of beating any of those 3 guys?
I mean, I'll say this. I don't think any of those guys at this point are the best Kovalev has fought, but I don't think you can say that about the other way around. Neither of them has fought the level Kovalev has. Neither of them have been on pay-per-view. Neither of them have, and let's face it, adversity-wise, I mean, what's going on right now with the potential criminal investigation, I mean, like it or not, but the ability to avoid that distraction, go out and win. And again, I've never heard of a guy whose trainer was ready to leave him almost in the middle of the fight. I can't imagine, Travis can probably speak on this more, but I can't imagine the mental fortitude you need to kind of get past that to still just focus on a fight. I don't think any of those guys have faced that sort of adversity. Beterbiev has freakish power. But he's definitely a guy who's been so inactive over the last few years. I think he's really destroyed his career in some ways. His fault or not, that's what's been happening. Gvozdyk, though, and Bivol, to me, are 2 of the most dangerous fighters I've seen in quite a while. Gvozdyk, I've seen him keep his head too upright, so we've seen him knock down. But you saw against Stevenson, he was able to take Stevenson's best shots. And Stevenson, 41 or not, Stevenson has always showed freakish power. We've seen that. And he was able to take a shot, and we saw the way he finished Stevenson. So when a guy is in front of him, the way he's able to finish punches and finish combinations is very impressive. And Bivol is still kind of a younger up and comer, but he's very small for that division. I think it's better for Bivol to go to 168. But Bivol has talent. Bivol has just throws punches in just crazy amounts. Like he's a murderous puncher who can just throw over and over for 12 rounds straight. I think those 2 are stylistically provide the most difficulties for someone like Kovalev, because Kovalev is a little older. He's going to have to box more smart, and guys like that, especially Gvozdyk. Gvozdyk is a very highly accomplished Olympian too, and he's a guy who's with Usyk and with Lomachenko, so he's just always with greatness. And I can't remember if both Kovalev and Gvozdyk, I don't know if they're both managed by Aegis Claimus or not. That would be interesting. I don't know if that prevents a fight or not from happening. That would be interesting though. But considering, I think that would make most sense for the next fight. Alternatively, Marcus Brown is kind of in that mix, but it's funny, no one really considers him part of that mix. At least I don't. I mean, it seems like he needed, Badu Jack has went through the hell in his last few fights, and he needed Badu Jack to have even with that one of the worst cuts I think I've ever seen. he still couldn't get him out of there, right? He still couldn't, beat that guy's determination down. So that, I don't know. Marcus Brown is not someone who intimidates me in that division. But style-wise against Kovalev, again, a supreme athlete, a guy who's tall, lanky, he could provide some problems. But I don't know. I think that the division is so stacked that I think any of those fights amongst those fellas are going to provide fireworks, and we're really going to get a new king of that division. But I mean, unfortunately, those fights have to happen next. There's no reason for, like where Kovalev just went. I mean, that was a big rematch, and he's always shown that he wants to fight the best. I don't want to see him fight anyone that's not worth fighting at this point. And I'm pretty confident that he ends up fighting a Gvozdyk or one of those guys next, because again, he is. I don't know where we would rank him. I don't know if someone's asking right now who's the number one light heavyweight. I don't think there's a clear answer, because yes, I mean, Kovalev obviously just put on a clinic, but he also just got knocked out not too long ago. I don't know. I think it's totally up for grabs, and I think 2019 might be the year of the light heavyweights. If we get the right matches, this whole division might be sorted out in the next 12 months. I'm hoping we get those matches, because I can't remember a time where this division was this entertaining and this stacked. I think, obviously no discredit to Andre Ward, but I mean, I don't think he would want to come back and be at light heavyweight. I think cruiserweight, funny enough, might be better for him, because light heavyweight is just a murderer's row of guys who are younger and hungrier, and it's just busy, and it's just I feel like that's what happened with Kovalev. It wasn't so much that Alvarez was just a hard fight for him. I just think after you, and same with Badujak, I think just after you fight so many difficult guys over and over and over again, even if you're not fighting the best guy in the next fight, it just might be a right place, right time kind of thing. So this division is very stacked. I'm curious to see what happens in the next 12 months.
Yeah, man, how much fun is it? We got another look at a 21-year-old phenom last night, Teofimo Lopez, and he scored another highlight reel knockout. This time was in the 7th round over a two-time title challenger, John Diego Magdaleno, who was 31-2, so he was no slouch. This was Teofimo's 4th brutal knockout win in a row. Any remaining doubts that he's the real thing?
Not for me. Oh,
yeah, it's hard to say. John, go ahead.
Go ahead, John. Not for me. I don't really have any doubt. I think, he's only had 12 fights, and he hasn't really fought. I mean, Diego was past his prime and all, but this guy fought for the title twice. He was outgunned right away, and we already touched on a little bit what happened later. But I think he's so sharp and so crisp and so full of himself, and not necessarily a bad way. He's got confidence from everywhere, from every pore of his body. So he believes, and what he was doing in there was really scientific and sweet, with those sweet uppercuts he was throwing, and they're so hard, and he's only going to get better, and that's what's scary. He's already talking about Lomachenko, which might be a little not, but I won't say it's silly, because you could see where with his youth and his ego and all that, he would believe he could beat Lomachenko. And Lomachenko, we have to remember, was 32, and he was just in a tough fight, and he might just catch Lomachenko at the right time whenever they fight. And I think they will fight. Could be a year from now or whatever. Lomachenko will be older. Lopez will be better. So personally, I don't have any doubt about the kid. I think he's really good, and because he showed even more facets of his game last night when he boxed a little bit. Are there some things he could work on? Of course, nobody is perfect, but as far as firepower and throwing all kinds of punches, I mean, that knockout was brutal. Should have never happened. Fight should have been stopped. I think we all agree on that. The referee, I don't know what the referee was yelling at the TV. Stop the fight, ref. What are you doing? And he's just watching. And, of course, it all happened in Texas, which is no surprise to any of us, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But he's just a tremendous fighter, and he's only 21 years old. So, yeah, it'll be very interesting who they match him up with next, Dennis.
Travis, lightweight is where we find Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez, who holds 2 of the belts, and Richard Commey, who's going to fight Lomachenko probably April 12th in Los Angeles. And then there's Mikey. If Teofimo rises the way we think he's going to rise, and Mikey, Mikey's got Errol Spence coming up, but I don't think he's going to stay at welterweight. Maybe he will, but that's enough to lure him back to lightweight, isn't it? Teofimo being a world champion and Lomachenko still being there. What a weight division that'll be if Mikey comes back.
Yeah, I mean, that dude's a bad dude, Dennis, so I don't know if that's going to lure him back. That might keep him up because he doesn't want to fight a guy like that. I'm just kidding. Garcia wants to fight everybody. He's a stud, so he definitely welcomes all challenges. But just to touch on Lopez, man, last night was the first night that I've really watched his fights. And, I mean, we all watched him knock out Mason Menard, but that was one round, so I didn't get to see a whole lot out of him. But last night, oh, my goodness. This is what he genuinely, guys, he reminded me a little bit of Floyd Mayweather. The way he was rolling with the punches and coming back with the uppercuts, the way he was countering, the way he was just carrying himself, he was a Mayweather but aggressive, and that's a freaking dangerous combination. And Lopez is, I mean, guys, that guy's the real deal. Like, he's the real deal, and I think he would give Lomachenko all he wanted and some right now. I'm not going to say he would beat him for sure because Lomachenko deserves that respect to know that he's that good, he's been that good, but I think a Lopez fight is a must-see fight. I think Lopez is, why not? Take one more fight and then fight Lomachenko. Why not? You're young. You have 0 to lose. That would almost be like when Canelo fought Mayweather. Canelo was super, super young, fought Mayweather. It was his first loss of his career for Canelo, and guess who he lost to? He lost to Floyd Mayweather. But look at Canelo now. Canelo has improved so much since that loss from Mayweather that Canelo is on another level. So what I'm saying is I think Lopez, even a lot of people might say that it's too early in his career to fight a Lomachenko. I say it's not. I say go for it and give it all you can, and he could possibly win, but why not? And if he loses, he lost to a pound-for-pound great right now, which is Lomachenko. Go for it, learn from it, and he's young enough that they could even get another Lomachenko fight if he loses. So Teofimo Lopez has a bright future. The kid is so full of himself, but in boxing, you've got to have an ego to be at that level because it's only you in that ring. And the only problem is with a lot of those guys is they carry that ego outside the ring, and that's what's not so good. But Lopez has got an ego inside the ring, but he's got an ego like a superstar. And that's what makes a superstar right there, is to have that ego when you're in the ring. You need to have that confidence. That confidence that he believes in himself, that's a must. You have to be that way because you're in there by yourself. You need to believe in yourself. You need to believe that you're capable of anything. And I think Lopez right now is at an all-time high in confidence. And I would not want to step in the ring with that guy. And this is coming from a guy, I fought Keith Thurman. I fought Terrence Crawford. I fought Chavez Jr. I fought them all. I wouldn't want to step in the ring right now with Teofimo Lopez. The guy can punch. The guy's confidence level is through the roof. And the kid is only climbing right now. And he's dangerous, Dennis. He's a dangerous guy. And I think he would pose a really massive threat to Lomachenko. And I want to see that fight.
And that's exciting. This is the Ringside Boxing Show from Monterey, California. I'm Dennis Taylor. We're talking to our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan, Zahid, John J. Raspanti. Okay, Riz, Anthony Joshua and Jarrell Big Baby Miller reportedly have agreed to fight. That one's going to be either June 1st or June 8th in Madison Square Garden. It's going to be on DAZN. It's going to be Joshua's first fight in the U.S. Miller's from Brooklyn, so it's going to be on his home turf at the Garden. Joshua couldn't get a fight against Wilder or Fury, who are fighting each other again. So is this the next best fight for him? Is this what he should have done?
I think so. I mean, to be honest, I'm a little disappointed that it's in June. I don't know why we have to wait another 6 months for guys who have already had 2 months off. That part doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But I think in some ways they forced him to make harder decisions. I think it forced him to have to make a trip to the States, and I think it forced him to take another tough fight because he's got to stay relevant. I think, as weird as that sounds, because he is not going to have, at least in the first half of the year, he's not having the most important heavyweight fight. I don't know what to make of Jarrell Miller, to be honest. We've seen him against very limited opposition, but he is a unique fighter, for better or worse. We're not going to find another guy who's 320 pounds who can throw 100 punches around. He's I don't think we've ever seen a fighter like this. And Joshua's, again, he's never really fought on the road. He's never had this kind of pressure on him. So it'll be interesting to see what Miller brings. That being said, Miller's obviously never fought someone like Joshua. It's going to be a completely different fight for him as well. I don't know. This has the makings of definitely a very good fight. Not Fury Wilder level, but definitely a very good fight. And I think what this does, I think this opens up Dillian White for possibly fighting Usyk, because they said Usyk was likely to return in New York in the first half of the year at heavyweight, and they didn't say who, but that's what I think is going to happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if those two are on the same card, and that way, if, let's say, Joshua and Wilder both win, which is what we're expecting, if that fight doesn't get made, there's Usyk in the mix. So there's a lot of different guys at play here, and again, Usyk's very, very, by default, Usyk's relevant in that division. And again, I don't want to write off Miller, though, because Big Baby Miller, he's huge. Like, Wilder's never fought a guy who's going to be outweighing him by 50 pounds or 60 pounds. He's never had that. And Miller's, the guy throws so many punches, and I think he's lightning quick. He's a guy, he's a football player that's become a boxer. Now, he's never been hit with a shot the way Joshua throws. So what's going to happen if he gets hit? But that being said, I don't know if there's a guy who's, I don't think Joshua's ever fought someone this quick, as weird as that sounds, because Klitschko, Klitschko was never a quick fighter. He was just a very precise fighter. But Miller's going to have Joshua thinking in there. Yeah, this is a very intriguing fight. I think the one thing I think that Wilder and Joshua have that the Mayweather-Pacquiao era didn't is these guys are still fighting relevant fights. They're still fighting fights that are still watchable and potential with upsets, where, like, Mayweather and Mosley fighting Joshua Clottey and Marguerite, like, those are never kind of providing that. I think that's what we're having here. So, again, the whole Joshua Wilder fight, that might be out the door by the time June comes around. And that's what makes these fights entertaining. So I'm curious to see what the odds are, because I don't think it's a foregone conclusion that Joshua retains his heavyweight title against Baby Miller.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
John, you're free to comment on that if you want. Also, I want to change the subject, though, to Ivan Baranchyk pulled out of the World Boxing Super Series 140-pound tournament. With his fight was going to be against Josh Taylor. Growing concerns that organizers don't have the funds to pay everybody involved and see this tournament to its completion. A group called Camosa is backing the tournament, but partners in that group supposedly have been squabbling, and fighters, promoters, and managers have already had to wait to get money that's owed to them. Payments have been late. Regis Prograis also has reportedly been considering pulling out of his semifinal bout. This is a real bummer, John, because the competition in the World Boxing Super Series has been terrific, and it's been great for boxing, and obviously this could have a domino effect and kill the whole thing, couldn't it?
Yeah, that's really sad. I hadn't read that. I certainly don't blame Baranchyk if he's concerned about getting paid. I mean, you got to get paid, and there has to be parameters set up to be paid. I don't exactly know how they are doing it, but if you're concerned and you know they have insider information about what's going on, and they know more than we do, if they feel things are crumbling and they're not getting what they're promised and they know other people haven't, then you can't really blame him, because when we had him on our show, he'll fight anybody, Baranchyk. So the bummer is that part is all really sad, but the biggest sadness of us as boxing fans too is the tournament. If it ends up collapsing, whether these guys fight each other, which they might or they might not, but they won't probably immediately, that is really a loss for boxing, because boxing is on such a roll right now as far as I'm concerned. Everything seems to be going very well, except when we get some ridiculous decisions or some judging that just makes you roll your eyes and go, ugh. But as far as these tournaments, they're great, and maybe Richard Schaefer can figure something out, but since Barancyk's already pulled out, that's that. But we're almost helpless, where we just have to hope that they figure it out, because we want to see these matchups. Now, as far as the Joshua Big Baby fight, yeah, I'm totally with Riz. I think that's an intriguing fight because I think if Big Baby can take a shot, he's got a legitimate chance to win that fight, Dennis. I do. I think if he can take Joshua into the later rounds, his not so much his awkwardness, a little bit, but his speed for 325 pounds, his ability to move, his hand speed, and Joshua does get tired. We know that, and he's carrying around that big body, 250 pounds and all that. If Big Baby gets into the 10th or 11th round and Joshua is ahead but starting to get gassed, we could see a big upset here. I wouldn't be stunned. Big Baby doesn't crack nearly as hard as Wilder, obviously, and Joshua, but his boxing skills are freakish for such a big guy. It's almost mind-boggling to watch him because the way he can move, he's so light on his feet for 320 pounds. I mean, the canvas might not agree with that. In the ring, it might be, come on, buddy, one at a time here. But, he can move around so lightly, and you're just like, wow. So what he is he's a hell of an athlete, and that's not said enough because we like to mock him with his weight. But he's not a flabby 320 pounds, and he's going to be in tip-top shape because this is his opportunity. And maybe I'm going to try to get him on the show again before the big fight with Joshua, Dennis. We can talk to him and hear what he's thinking. But I think that is a great fight for him, and it's a compelling fight. People are going to grow. Joshua's going to knock him out. I'm not so sure. If he can last through the first 5 or 6 rounds, just box and move and give Joshua different looks and stay away from that right hand and fight intelligently. And if he's down like 4 rounds to 2 going into the 7th, oh man, we got some good stuff coming later in the fight. I think it's very possible that the Big Baby is going to pull off an upset. I do. Now, obviously, Joshua was favored. I would favor him. But I think this fight has a lot more intangibles than people are seeing right now. And again, I agree with Riz too. I don't know what it is. Why does Joshua fight so infrequently? It's frustrating. Twice a year? I mean, have him fight 3 times a year. Why twice? And it's Eddie Hearn again, who I really respect as a promoter, and I think does a great job, and he really likes his fighters. That's what I like. I was watching him yesterday, and Ted Cheeseman was fighting, and every time Cheeseman did something in his fight with Sergey Garcia, which wasn't very often, he would jump out of his chair and scream and yell, and you don't see that from promoters. He likes his fighters. And by the way, I don't know if you guys saw that, but Ted Cheeseman, we're talking about a Rocky Balboa guy full of guts here. I mean, he took so many punches and kept coming and coming, but I think Eddie Hearn's been outmaneuvered. I think Wilder and Fury, they've taken the play away from Joshua a little bit, and I think that's why he decided to bring him to America too, because they want to get more exposure. They want to remind people that he's the number 1 guy, which I think he is. But Eddie lost a little momentum, and I still blame him more, believe it or not, than the Wilder team. I think he played way too many games with that fight. And now Wilder and Fury are basically what people talk about with the heavyweights. So he needs to make something happen. But back to my Big Baby talk, that Big Baby, they better not underrate him because that guy's got skills, and he could give Joshua all he can handle in that fight.
Okay, Travis, let me get your take on this too, because what happens if John's right? I mean, if Big Baby turns out to be able to take Joshua's punch, John just pointed out that Joshua tends to get tired anyway, second half of a fight. What's it going to be like? You're a professional fighter. What's it going to be like for Joshua to go 12 rounds, having to try and push around a guy who outweighs him by 70 friggin' pounds, a strong guy?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely going to come into play, but make no mistake about it, Anthony Joshua is in shape. I mean, any guy that can stop and have that power in the 11th round against a Klitschko, it goes to show you, I mean, he did get winded, but when you still have the power to be able to stop a great like Klitschko in the 11th round, I mean, that speaks volumes about Anthony Joshua. And Anthony Joshua, he's where he's at because he's that good. But I think that they're all right that Big Baby Miller's going to give him a lot of problems because he throws a lot of punches. anybody that throws a lot of punches in the heavyweight division is going to pose problems for anybody, because what that's going to do is that's going to increase the work rate of Anthony Joshua, because Anthony Joshua is going to have to either match that or counter and do something more to win that. So that's going to play into the fact of his conditioning, but I think they know that. So I think that they're definitely going to make sure that Joshua's in shape, because Joshua is not going to be able to count on an early knockout against a guy like Big Baby Miller. However, guys, I do think Joshua is going to win that fight. But I like it, though. I think it's a big fight for the heavyweight division. I think it's a fun fight. I think it's a fight where an upset could possibly happen for sure, because that's another guy who, I wouldn't say Big Baby Miller has an ego, but he's got this confidence about himself that he believes in himself more than anything. And that is one of the most important things in boxing. And this is what I try to tell people that are not fighters. They always ask me, what's the mental and the physical aspect of boxing? And I tell people it's 90% mental and 10% physical. And I stand by that. It really is. It's that mental belief that you have that makes you who you are in that ring. And if that's the case, a guy like Gerald Big Baby Miller, he absolutely has every right and every chance to upset a guy like Anthony Joshua. And he gets to do it in his home state. I mean, what better place to do it in front of all your fans in one of the biggest fights on one of the biggest stages in the Hall of Fame Madison Square Garden. I would also like to tell you guys this. This is pretty interesting, that Big Baby Miller, he fought his last fight last November in Wichita, Kansas, at the same arena that I'm fighting at, February 15th. So Big Baby Miller won there, and then he gets to fight Anthony Joshua. So, I mean, if I win my fight, guys, I definitely should get a fight with Eddie Hearn in Matchroom somewhere, right? I mean, that just seems fair to me, that if I win in the same arena that Gerald Big Baby Miller did, I should get the same opportunity.
Sounds fair to me. Can you beef up to heavyweight and fight Joshua?
Well, I don't know about that. I just maybe give me a big fight out there, at Madison Square would be nice. But you know what? Okay. You know me, guys. If they pay me enough money, I'll step in the ring with anybody. We all know that.
It's just that friggin' crazy. Yep. Okay, so, guys, Golovkin's he's had a busy week. First of all, he sued two of his managers, Maximilian and Oleg Herman, for $3.5 million. Says the Herman brothers took advantage of him for many years by intentionally failing to account for revenue from his fights. He says they took higher percentages in commissions than they were entitled to, and he says they failed to work on his behalf in his most recent fights. It's really surprising to me that this kind of thing can happen to a guy like Golovkin, but it shows how vulnerable boxers can be to predatory managers and promoters. Secondly, it's looking really likely that Golovkin is it seems like it's coming down to Eddie Hearn and DAZN to win the Golovkin sweepstakes, although PBC is also in the running, it sounds like. So that means if Golovkin goes with Eddie Hearn and DAZN, that puts him in the running for Canelo 3. If he goes with Al Heyman and PBC, they control Jermall Charlo, and Heyman also apparently has offered Golovkin 8 figures like Eddie Hearn did, according to Ring Magazine. So money aside, it comes down to who he wants to fight, I guess. Canelo for the third time or Charlo, who's undefeated. Riz, what would you do if you were him? Are you still there? We lost Riz. John, what would you do if you were him?
Oh boy. Well, if I'm Golovkin, I'm thinking, okay, I already know what I got with Canelo. I fought him twice. I know what I'm going to get, most likely. I mean, I'm going to get the boxer puncher. I'm going to get the slugger. But I've been in the ring with him twice. 24 rounds, give and take. I still think he won the first fight. Second fight, no problem with the decision. So in my mind, I'm thinking 1-1. So I know what I'm getting. Charlo is younger, and we still don't quite know about him. So then you break it down. You go, okay, I'll get more money probably if I fight Canelo. Not probably, I will. Third fight, big third fight of the year to a lot of people. Charlo is less money. I'd probably go against Canelo again because I would think that I would be motivated. I'm just talking about myself here, and as Golovkin really competitive, and I actually feel bad for the guy in a way because I think he's been screwed royally in a lot of ways by boxing. He's suing two of his old managers, which is, I think he probably signed with him when he was younger, maybe a little naive, didn't know what they were doing. Now he's older. He's on to it. He's angry. He got, like I said, the decisions were debatable. So he's probably a little bitter and a little angry. And if I was him, I'd be thinking, you know what? I think I want to fight Canelo again. But problem is, I would wonder if I could get a fair shake. I would wonder if I could get a decision against Canelo. That's the thing that would be in the back of my mind. And also, see, this is the thing. This is why this is so hard if you're thinking about it. Canelo, like Travis said a little while ago, Canelo's getting better, and Golovkin's not. Let's be honest. Golovkin got a lot of wear and tear on his body now, 400-plus amateur fights, 39 pro fights. He's slowing down. Everybody can see it. So his chances of winning a third fight are pretty slim against Canelo. So then you bounce. I'm sitting up on the fence here. Then you bounce back and you think Charlo. So I would probably still go with Canelo because I get more money for that fight, and I think I would be more motivated to get my revenge. I would train my rear end off and do everything in my power to try to get my then 37-year-old body in tip-top shape against Canelo. And I wouldn't talk about any of the other stuff. I wouldn't say anything. I would just be totally focused. So if I was him, Dennis, there you go. I would go to a DAZN, I guess, right, and fight Canelo for a third time.
Okay, and Travis, as a fighter, are you surprised that Golovkin's having this money issue with his former managers?
You know what? Sadly, no, I'm not surprised because we see that in boxing so much. I think it was Sonny Liston or somebody who said that boxing is the only sport that you can get your head shook, your money took, and your name in the Undertaker book. And it's so true. I mean, it rings so true. It's so sad because, guys, like I said, I'm a professional fighter now. I'm going into this will be 15 years, guys, next month that I've been a professional boxer, which is absurd to think about. But it's a tough sport. I mean, these guys, I know they're making millions, but I promise you, man, they're earning every penny of that. And Golovkin, he's got that fighting style to where, he's never had easy fights. I mean, he eats punches and he takes punches to give punches and he likes it. But at the end of the day, like, I want to see those guys get rewarded more than anything, especially I just want to see them keep the money that they earned. And I think right now that there's a couple slugs and a couple leeches that sound like are just stealing from Golovkin, and it happens so much. I mean, I know you guys have been around the sport so much. You guys are pretty much historians of the boxing sport, so you've seen and heard it all. That how many fighters do we hear of managers taking advantage of them, ripping them off, promoters, etc.? I mean, it's everywhere. I mean, you got a guy like Mike Tyson who made over $500 million, and somehow he filed for like a $350 million bankruptcy. Like, I mean, and that wasn't just because of Tyson. That was because of a guy like Don King was taking advantage of him and taking money off the top. And yeah, I mean, it happens so much in professional boxing. And God willing, one day, guys, when I retire, I definitely want to try to make that right and make sure that fighters don't get taken advantage of like that. Because these managers, what did these managers do for Golovkin? Golovkin made his name by knocking people out. That's how Golovkin got big. And Golovkin fought his butt off and trained his butt off. And now you got these managers who are just sitting behind a freaking computer or a table, and they're collecting millions of dollars. I mean, let that ring. Millions of dollars they've taken from him for doing probably absolutely nothing. And that just kills me, especially a guy like Golovkin. I think we all think that Golovkin is a class act. Golovkin is what it really is good about boxing. I mean, the guy's a hard worker. The guy finally is getting what he deserves, money-wise, that is. And now he's getting it taken away from him as well. So that kind of sucks. But I think, to Dennis's question to John, I think that he should fight Canelo based on the fact that that's where he's going to get the most money, period. There's going to be nobody else that's going to come close to getting that kind of money. So I would 100%, as a competitor, you want to fight Canelo again because you want to beat him. And as a business standpoint, you want to fight Canelo again because you're going to make the most money. So those two right there are my top two options. Is I want the most competitive fight and I want the biggest money. And that's Canelo. So I think it's a no-brainer. I think he has to fight Canelo. And the thing is, he can always fight Charlo down the road if he wants to as well, eventually. So, like, I think he should fight Canelo 100% because that's where all the money is, and that's the smartest play, in my opinion, because he knows he can compete with Canelo. I mean, he's been there. Like John said, he, in a lot of people's eyes, Golovkin won the first fight, for sure. The second fight, I was okay with as well. I thought Canelo won. But Golovkin can still compete with Canelo. Even though Canelo is getting better, Golovkin is right there still. So anything can change that fight. One punch, one inch, 1 centimeter, and it can be a different result. So I think he should fight Canelo. Plus, I want to see it personally. So selfishly, I definitely want to see him do that. But also as a businessman, I want to see him get paid, and he'll get paid fighting Canelo.
That's Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and John J. Raspanti. They're our expert analysts. All three of them told us that Kovalev was going to beat Eleider Alvarez, and they were right. That's pretty amazing, guys. Thanks a bunch, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, take care, guys.
All right, guys. John J. Raspanti's going to be back with me in a minute to help us talk to Kenny Porter. That's coming up. But up next is Paul McLaughlin, our British correspondent, and he's coming up in about 1 minute, so stay with us.
If you like the Ringside Boxing Show, you're going to love the website, ringsideboxingshow.com.
Oh, boy, is this great! Hi, I'm Dennis Taylor, host of the Ringside Boxing Show, where since 2008 we have been continuously sponsored by Garcia Boxing, the first family of the sweet science on California's beautiful Central Coast. Trainers Max and Sam Garcia and ring strategist Dean Hamilton are regarded among the most knowledgeable in the game. And Kathy Garcia, who manages all Garcia boxing fighters, is renowned for her integrity and career guidance, having taken 2 boxers to #1 world rankings. Together they comprise one of the most respected teams in the sport. Learn more by calling 831-261-3214 or send them an email at garciaboxing25@aol.com.
Hi there, it's Paul McLaughlin with your weekly roundup of everything going on in the UK boxing scene at the moment. Right, well, Ted Cheeseman failed to claim the European super welterweight title as he suffered a unanimous points defeat to Sergey Garcia. The 23-year-old endured his first professional loss, despite his reckless bravery from the first bell, with Garcia sealing a dominant victory with scores of 119-109, 119-109 and 115-114 at the O2 Arena. Cheeseman had found the step up in class too sizable after winning the British belt in October, struggling to compete with the precise combinations and clever movement of Garcia, and the South Londoner was a forlorn figure at the final bell. Eddie Hearn summed up Cheeseman's performance at the end of the bout.
The reality is wasn't good enough. Sergey Garcia I thought was outstanding, but Ted Cheeseman showed probably the biggest set of balls I've seen for a long time. It's so easy when you're 7 rounds down through 9 just to say, do you know what, let's just sort of try and get behind the jab and hold and get through it. He didn't stop trying to win the fight for 1 second of the fight, even in the 12th round when he had absolutely nothing in his tank. But it's easy to talk about the mistakes, the lack of head movement, the lack of jab, and sometimes maybe he felt that he was going to overpower Sergey Garcia, not just with his punch power, but with his fitness, with his engine. And Sergey Garcia's engine was actually on another level. I mean, he's a world-class fighter, and I think so. He was asked the question: did you underestimate him? It was a fight that everybody wanted in the camp, and he'll come again. But it was a brutal fight, and a good performance from Sergey Garcia. And Ted Cheeseman will come again, still British champion, but obviously showed tonight not quite at that level.
A brave performance, but maybe just a step too far. Elsewhere on the night, Lawrence Okoli halted Tamas Lodi in the 3rd round as he warmed up for a British and Commonwealth title clash against Wadi Camacho. Britain's cruiserweight champion repeatedly floored his Hungarian opponent before the fight was waved off, setting up a showdown with the Commonwealth title holder Camacho at the Copper Box Arena on March the 23rd. The punch power of Okoli had early been on show as he began to blast away at the defences of Lodi from the opening bell. Here is Okoli's thoughts on the fight.
Yeah, it was a lot of
wanted to work on a few things, see if I could be calm enough to practice stuff that I've been training on, and I was. Obviously, just as he's not a world beater, the guy just first, but it was good to have the mental preparation to just practice what I preach. I was nervous not about losing this fight, but just about it being messy or anything like that. There was talk of Roddy taking the fight, so I'm proud of him for manning up and accepting, so we got him for that, but it's a big mistake on his part.
And after trading words with Waddy Camacho ringside, we asked what was said.
You know what, it's funny because I see Waddy out and about. He never has nothing to say, never has none of that energy, but as soon as the cameras are on, he turns up. I will be training in Muscle Arts Gym in the build-up to it, so you can come and see me anytime. And when we fight, it will be brutal.
Well, that should be a cracking bout. Elsewhere, Dillian Whyte says a rematch with Anthony Joshua is off, and he is targeting a fight against American Dominic Breazeale in his next heavyweight bout. Whyte had been in talks with Joshua over a potential heavyweight title fight at Wembley Stadium on April the 13th, but he has now switched his focus. With an all-British heavyweight fight off the cards for now, Joshua looks set to make his US debut against Jarrell Big Baby Miller at Madison Square Garden in June. Dillian Whyte told us his thoughts.
Oh, the Joshua fight is dead. It's starting there in a minute, so we move on. Big things, I'm in a good position where I've got options, and then we wanted the fight. I think they wanted the fight as well, but sometimes negotiations break down. I believe I have a certain value. I believe a certain value to the fight, and he believes that this is what he wants to give me. So there's lots of ins and outs with it. Negotiation business it's very difficult. The fans don't really see the ins and outs of that, but yeah. So we move on. A fight April 20th here, hopefully against Dominic Breazeale or Alexander Povetkin and Luis Ortiz, one of those kind of guys. So let's see what Eddie can deliver in the next couple of days.
Right, that's it off from me, guys. I'll be back next week with some more British boxing updates. In the meantime, gloves up and protect yourselves at all times. Back to the studio.
Hot times on the UK boxing scene. Thank you, Paul McLaughlin. Kenny Porter is on deck, and he's going to tell you some stuff you probably are not expecting to hear, guaranteed. This guy tells the truth. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you in 1 minute on the Ringside Boxing Show.
I'm Dennis Taylor, co-author of the Amazon bestseller Intimate Warfare, the true story of the Artur and Mickey Ward boxing trilogy. Writing this book was a labor of love for John J. Raspanti and myself. We enjoyed every minute of the process and considered it a privilege to tell the tale of one of the most electrifying boxing trilogies in the history of this sport. Intimate Warfare traces the collision course of Artur and Mickey Ward from their earliest days through their 3 epic fights, as well as the aftermath of this great rivalry, which culminated in one of the greatest friendships in boxing. Intimate Warfare has received a 4.5-star rating from readers and was endorsed by Hall of Famers Harold Letterman and Joe Cortez and 2-time Trainer of the Year Virgil Hunter. Our foreword was written by Ray Boom Boom Mancini, another one of the greatest blood and guts fighters of our time. Get your copy today at Amazon.com.
Welcome back to the Ringside Boxing Show on the Grueling Truth Network. I'm Dennis Taylor with John J. Raspanti, and today's featured guest is the father, manager, promoter, and head trainer of Showtime, Shawn Porter, who will be defending his WBC welterweight title belt March 9th in Carson, California, against Yorganis Ugas. That's a PBC fight, and you're going to see it on Fox. We're talking, of course, about Kenny Porter, who has been on our show a few times before. Kenny, welcome back. Thanks for making some time for us today on the Ringside Boxing Show. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you guys for having me. Thank you guys for staying persistent and trying to get in contact with me, because I get pulled in a lot of directions when it's close to fight time, and I appreciate you guys, staying on top of me about that, because I really like your show. I love your show.
Hey, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll use that as a promo too. Hey, Ken, how many fighters do you think you've worked with as a trainer over the years? Just a wild guess.
You know what? I'm gonna tell you that's funny. It's funny to me because I must say that, and we're gonna look at it from a totally different aspect than maybe fans look at it and see you on TV. So, obviously you guys know better than, the average fan, but they think when they see you on TV, oh, this is what these guys do, but they don't see what we did to get here.
Yep.
Right.
So to put some of this in perspective for you, I've worked with hundreds, and when I mean hundreds, but I've worked with dozens of elite guys before they became world champions. I had the Charlo brothers in northern Michigan when they were 14 years old.
Oh, really? Wow.
One of them, yeah. I was a young coach at northern Michigan, and one of them is actually, to this day, uses the ring name I gave him when he was a kid, which is Iron Man. Guys like Dmitry Andre. I was with him when he's 14, 15 years old in a junior world tournament. I was a national coach, and so he was on my team. He actually fought Shawn back then as well. Other guys like world champions like Adrian Bronner. I knew him since he's 8, 9 years old. And my list can go on and on. You know, first came in contact with Danny Jacobs in competition at 14 years of age. It just goes on and on and on. So there's been so many guys. You know, you wouldn't know, but I'll say it anyway. I was Errol Spence's head coach in Russia back in 2011. I was his head coach. I took him to Russia and also took him to Ukraine. And then also I was part of the World Championships team in Azerbaijan that he was on. By the way, a little-known heavyweight back then lost it in the finals in the championship, Anthony Joshua. So, really? Wow. So I had lunch with Joshua probably every day that week. Had no clue who was going to be one day, and he just was a nice kid, and he sat by himself, and he sat near me, and we talk every day. So, you know, when you're in those type of camps, summer camps, you know, I did the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. I did the Olympic Training Center in Lake Placid, New York, and a lot of the guys who were on my teams and on those junior world teams have gone on to become world champions or to be in position to one day fight for a world championship. They're all in that age range right now. So there's been hundreds of guys. I mean, again, putting it in perspective, just my two sons alone, Kenny and Shawn, they won combined, they won over 20 nationals for me. Combined, just together. So, you know, it's been a great journey, and there's been hundreds, I almost want to say thousands of kids.
Okay, so here's my follow-up on that. How different is the feeling when there's a world-class opponent in the other corner and you're working a corner for your own son?
Well, I guess you could say it's no different because, like, you know, I've been on different levels, world championship fights, the world championships, the Pan Am Games, the junior world championships. Shawn's in the finals we're in Morocco. He's in the finals in the under-19 world championships against the Cuban. Here we go again. You know, so it's a lot of things that I've already been prepared for. A lot of things that I see now I've already been prepared for.
It's a deeper feeling though when you're a dad. You know, that's what I'm getting at. Right. I'm wondering if you're able to compartmentalize that, or
it may be a different feeling for other people. It's not a deeper feeling for me.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't really know how I would describe it. I don't really know how I would describe it and make it not sound bad. By that I mean, like, literally. I'll give you an example. Danny Garcia said yeah, I'm going to stop Shawn Porter. This was prior to the press conference. He's doing interviews. I'm going to stop Shawn Porter. They're going to stop this fight. He cuts easy, and I'm going to cut him, and I'm going to stop. They're going to have to stop the fight on cuts. They asked me about it. I said, I'm going to cut Shawn before he goes to the ring. How about that, Danny? So I am totally different than other people who are related to the fighter. I'm just totally different. I mean, my kid rode his tricycle down the steps when he was 3 years old, busted his head wide open, blood's everywhere. His mother said, we got to go to the emergency room. He said, I want to ride again. I said, let him ride. We never went to the emergency room. I'm just different in that aspect, so I don't know how to relay it to someone so they would understand and not think that I'm not a loving father. Oh, I love my kid. If somebody runs in the room, starts shooting, I'm covering him. But you know, it doesn't affect me like it affects other people when I walk up to that ring. You know, it's a do or die situation for both fighters, and I fully understand that.
We've had your son on our show multiple times, and I've told him this on the show. He's always been the classiest guy in the sport. Tell us the secret. Tell us the secret about parenting at your house. What were the golden rules in your household? Beat him.
I'm getting them used to it. Yeah,
come on, man. How do you even get a B? Gentlemen.
You didn't get an A, you got a B. Beat him. What do you mean? No. Okay. So there is no secret. There's an everyday learning experience, and it never stops. Your kids never stop driving you crazy. Shawn is no different from any other kid in that aspect, but he was different growing up. A lot what you see is, you know, when he got ready to turn professional, I sat him down and I said, you mean to tell me you're not going to go to college and get a degree? He said, no, I want to box. And we had a long conversation about that because I didn't want him to turn pro. I wanted him to go to school and get a degree. So when the decision was finally made that this was what was going to happen and I was going to support him in it, and he wanted me to be the one to train him and everything, I said, okay, I want you to become the consummate professional athlete, not boxer. I want you to become the consummate professional athlete. And I think a lot of that he's been able to do that. He's been able to do what I asked in that one statement of what I said I wanted him to be, and I think he's been able to do that most times. There's been no disappointments in his behavior, and you know how you get a lot of other guys getting caught up in different problems and situations and things. But growing up, he was like that all the time. He always got great grades, not good, great. His grades were always great. He always got good behavior marks, great behavior marks. And this kid, unlike his two brothers, older brothers, he would go from one grade to the next grade, and the teacher wouldn't want him to leave. They didn't want him to go to the next grade. I'm like, what do you mean? He said, I love him so much. He's just a joy to be in my class. And I've actually seen teachers cry, and I said, well, he's only going down the hall. He's not leaving the school. He's just going down the hall. And his senior year, he was supposed to co-represent the United States in Argentina. So he wasn't going to the prom. Didn't get a prom suit, didn't have a prom date or anything. And the day we got ready to catch the plane, there was some kind of crazy alert that there were problems over there. They shut the trip down. Comes back, and I said, dude, you need to go to the prom. You know, you need to experience that as a young man in high school. You need to go. And he's like, I don't have a date. I don't care about it. No big deal. I wanted to go to this tournament. He bummed out about the tournament. Well, I called up the principal, and I said, hey, listen, you know, Shawn is having trouble dealing with this. I want him to go and I want him to have fun. Principal tells me, listen, he can have my daughter. By the time we get to the school, the principal and one of the counselors have both given Shawn their daughters to go to the prom. So he wound up going to 2 different proms with 2 different girls. He's just been that good of a person, that good of a kid, and a great athlete to go along with it. And so we've been blessed in that aspect.
Interesting. What about growing up? I think I heard that Shawn was a hell of an athlete, and I think I remember hearing about football. Was that true? What kind of athlete was Shawn in high school?
Yeah, he was an amazing athlete. Track and field, sprinter, one of the fastest kids in the state. Football, everything from the time he's 8 years old through his senior year. Broke Larry Zonka's records at his high school. Went to the same high school as Zonka. Rushing records. He was a running back. He was Old Spice Red Zone Player of the Year in football, and he was also USA Today Player of the Week when he eclipsed Zonka in one game, like 7 touchdowns in 3 quarters. He was just an amazing athlete, unstoppable. Great little point guard on the basketball team. He just after sophomore year, he decided he didn't want to extend his body like he was, playing all the different sports. But it was guaranteed when he went to a game and everybody came out to watch him play. It was guaranteed. And the funny part about that is when he played football or ran track, nobody equated it. Nobody really realized that he was the boxer. They didn't put the two together. They just was cheering on the kid on the football field or, the kid on the track or whatever it was. They didn't really, it didn't cross over. I put him in an all white schools, to say the least. It was an area where there were not a lot of diversity, and they only cared about what he was doing. They didn't care about something they heard about he did. They only cared about what he was doing for the school and the mascot type thing, So it was guaranteed that he, run up and down that field and he'd score all the touchdowns and he'd make the tackles on defense and he'd get the interception at the end of the game to win the game. That was guaranteed. He did that all the time.
Wow. Ken, what was your sport?
That's why I'm sorry to cut you off. That's why I wanted him to go to take the scholarships and go to college.
Yeah, did he have athletic offers at colleges to play football or any place?
Yeah, and because he was such a good student. So it was going to translate very easy for us. Like, you're a great student, you have no trouble with learning, and you excel in education, and you're a great athlete, they're going to love you. And his problem was they wanted him to put on about 20 pounds of muscle, and he didn't want his weight to go up like that.
Yeah.
He said he wouldn't be able to box again.
Oh, wow. So, what was your sport growing up? Were you a boxer yourself, or were you better at something else?
I played football. I did gymnastics. I never took it to a high level other than high school. And then I boxed from the time I was a young kid off and on and through my early 20s. And actually, when I took Shawn to a boxing gym at 4, I was competing, and I competed from the time when Shawn was 4. His first sparring session was at 4 years of age. But I competed from that time until Shawn's senior year in high school. And my last fight was in the Ringside World Championship thing they had going on with Ringside Boxing.
Yeah.
And they combined the USA Under-19 tournament with the Ringside tournament that year. and I made it to the finals. Shawn was my coach, working my corner. And he makes it to the finals, and I'm going to be going up against some guy from England in the championship. And Shawn drew a very, very, very good fighter by the name of Dmitry. So I made the easy decision, which I, didn't have to think twice about it. I didn't care about beating some guy from England. We got Demetrius. We got a tough fight. I made the decision to pull out of the tournament and only work Shawn's corner for the finals and not fight that day myself. And we beat Demetrius. That was his last loss in the United States.
Wow. Really? That's something.
Yeah.
Hey, so you took now Shawn's the little brother, right? Kenny's older.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was there a discussion in your house about taking your kids into boxing, even though you were a fighter yourself? Was Mom on board?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah. I'm wondering if Mom was on board with you taking your sons into boxing, or if there was a serious discussion about that at your house.
Two things there. I raised him as a single father.
Okay.
Which is one. And the other thing, as far as that's concerned, she's a very religious person, and she told my boys that God didn't want them boxing. God didn't want them to hit people. And what happened was it really bothered Kenny. I mean, so much. He's about 11 years old, and he was crying. He comes to me, and he said, my mother said, God don't want us to do this. And he was just really upset, tears, And this kid was really good at boxing. He was, I didn't want him to quit. And I didn't think that there was anything wrong with it, from Christianity, belief, or anything like that. So I went in there and in the Bible and found a verse that said, fight the good fight. And I read it to my boys, and I said, don't we always pray before we box? And he said, yes. I said, don't we always pray afterwards? He said, yes. I said, so if there was anything wrong with it, we would have had some type of sign or indication, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I think that kind of, he went back and told his mom, hey, God said fight the good fight in the Bible. My daddy showed it to me. But it did, at one point, it did bring on a conversation, and it did bring on Kenny's behalf, it did bring, he was upset. He was very upset about it, and he thought that it wasn't a good thing for him to do because of his, his upbringing, his beliefs, and his mom. But we've incorporated our belief, not to push off on anyone else, but to let everyone know that we do believe in God and we are Christians and we love the Lord. And these blessings we have are only because of Him. We didn't do any of this on our own.
Interesting. So, Ken, tell me this. I love this question. What point did you start to understand that Shawn had a good chance to do something special in boxing? Was he really young when he first spotted it, or did it happen a little later?
Well, a lot like what I said, I kind of detached myself from the emotional part of, I guess, how I feel about my son when he's getting hit or something like that. I'm more into the hit him back part or make him miss and hit him back than I am into the, he's getting hit. A lot like that. It was the same thing with boxing. Shawn has just always been an amazing athlete. He's always been an amazing athlete, but I never had a conversations with either of my sons about becoming professional boxers. I never had a conversation with them when they were coming out of high school about continuing boxing. I honestly thought and believed, especially with Shawn doing as well as he was doing in school, sports and education, that he would go on to college and play football, and then I was going to move to Las Vegas with a pair of hand pads and a duffel bag and go train people. That's what I thought was going to happen. And I never had that conversation with them. So watching him grow up and watching his brother grow up, my only thoughts and vision was college, education, and the sport that they were excelling at. That was it. We never had that. When it came time to have that conversation, Shawn was the one that brought it to me.
This is the Ringside Boxing Show from Monterey, California. I'm Dennis Taylor with John J. Raspanti. We're talking to Kenny Porter, who's the trainer and manager of Showtime Shawn Porter, two-time world champion. Kenny, what kind of moment was it for your family in 2013 when Shawn beat Devin Alexander to win that IBF welterweight title?
It was I would say a culmination of so many years of competition doing what we've done for such a long time. You know, you put kids in the tournaments at young ages. You don't know what's going to happen. You go to the tournament the first time, and you know their eyes are bright and wide, and you know you as a young coach, you're pretty much the same way. And then after you see how they do in the tournament, then you train and you go back and you try to come back the next year to do better. And as those type of things were materializing and those tournaments were coming along and we were going back and doing better, and it got to the point where he's always in the finals. He's always there with Danny Jacobs. He's always there with Dmitry. There's always these guys competing against each other. Then you start to begin to realize that, you know, you're good at this. You just got to keep working at this. But there's so many miles that you've driven on a highway. There's so many hotels that you stayed in. There's so many sacrifices that you've made. I mean, every year my income tax is dedicated to my kids. You know, I wasn't buying anything nice for myself or doing anything. It was always making sure they had what they needed. And it became, you know, a huge part of life. So when you put all of those miles together and all those miles that he's run and all those miles, all those rounds that he sparred, and that was just the culmination of it. It was kind of a happy relief, if that makes sense to you. It was kind of like, yes, we did it. We got it, you know. And neither one of us are big rah-rah guys. So we had a party for him winning that championship about a month and a half later. and I tell you, we were leaving the party around a little bit after midnight ourselves. Because we're just not the hoopers, you know, we're just not the jump up and down type.
So you had that successful title defense against Malignaggi, and then you lost that real close fight to Kell Brook. In private, was that a real bitter pill for you and Shawn to swallow, or did you guys just shrug and say, okay, back to work?
No, that shut Shawn down for a long time. It really set him back. He went into a depression behind that. How deep a depression, I don't know, because I just allowed him to, you know, go out, do things, have fun, and try to just be a young kid, be a young man, and not dwell on the situation. But of course, it bothered him for a long time, and then finally one day he came to me and he said he's ready to get back started. I said, all right, let's go to work. But he definitely was down. He's definitely down for a long time behind that. And you know, when he wanted to talk to me about it, and he asked me what I thought about the fight, and you know, I told him, you know, there were things that he didn't do, and he got to make sure moving forward that he didn't make those same kind of mistakes. He had to learn from the L that he received in the fight. learn from it. And I think in a lot of ways he did, but then there's always those moments where, you know, a guy gets, you know, one such as Shawn may get overzealous or too excited, and that overtakes his thought process of the strategy or something like that, and I have to try to reel him back in. But yeah, it shut him down for quite a while. He was down for quite a few months about that, and it wasn't like I, you know, saw him every day just moping around, but I knew that it really affected him in that way. And I was talking to him one day about it. You know, this was before he even got back training, and he said, you know, I just don't know. You know, I don't know what happened, and you know why I'm not champion. And those are the questions that go through a guy's mind when that happens. You know, it's a lot of things that go through their mind when they take that first loss like that. And I asked him a question. I said, do you think we could have went to England and I told you to run across the ring and grab Kelbrook and hold on him, and he was a champion and we wouldn't have got disqualified? Do you think that would have happened? And he said, no. I said, yeah, we would have got disqualified. It would have happened. They would have taken points from us. We would have been disqualified. But it's one of those things you got to learn from. So part of our training since then has always been to be able to break out of people's clinches, and when the clinches go further than the clinch and they're a foul and a hold, to get out of that as well. Never to complain to the referee. It's our job to fight our way through it, and he's been able to do that.
You know, Shawn spent his entire career in one of the most talented weight divisions we've seen in boxing for a lot of years, Ken. And he's competed at an elite level with the top guys. Alexander, we mentioned Malignaggi, we mentioned Brook, Broner, Thurman, Berto, Danny Garcia. Now we got Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, and Mikey Garcia's in there too. How do you think this welterweight era compares to the time of the great Sugar Ray Leonard and Tommy Hearns and Roberto Duran and Wilfredo Benitez?
I don't think they compare to those guys, but I think for this era, they are those guys. So the Shawn Porters, the Danny Garcias, the Keith Thurmans, the Errol Spences, the Bud Crawfords, and they're not necessarily in that order, you know, but that's just how they you know, came to my mind to express it to you. Those guys need to fight each other. Shawn needs to fight those guys in order to be great. He needs to beat those guys in order to be great. And those guys need to fight each other in order to at least be in the conversation for this era that they were those type of fighters. I don't think, and this is not to say that it can't happen for a Keith Thurman or a Bud Crawford or a Shawn Porter or a Danny Garcia or Mikey Garcia. Not to say that it can't happen, but I don't think right now that those guys are comparable to those guys as a man-for-man fighters. Hearns or Hagler or Leonard or Duran, but as a conglomerate, as an era of the fighters that fought each other in that weight class, they could definitely be in that conversation. And this is what they need to all strive for, to be in that conversation. And then, if you're in that conversation, separate yourself from that group of guys and move on to another conversation, a bigger and better conversation. So, yeah, I wouldn't say that they compare as, you know, one-on-one. No, I'm not saying, you know, we don't have, you know, I don't think there's a physical specimen out of these guys that compares to Tommy Hearns. I don't think so. But I believe as a group, as a whole, these guys could be that Hagler, Hearns, Leonard, Duran of this era.
I see. Okay. No, I've been wanting to ask you this for a while, Ken. I watched your interview with Angel Garcia before the Danny Garcia fight in Brooklyn, and that was really a good interview. It was very interesting watching you guys, and maybe I'm crazy, but it seemed like you had the advantage over Angel in a number of ways. One, he was more quiet than he usually is, and I don't know. It just seemed you just came across more confident, and Angel came across a little wary and a little unsure of the outcome. Did you sense that at all, or am I completely reading into something here that didn't exist?
No, you were 1,000% correct, and this is no slight against him or to put anything negative spin on it at all. But two things that happened, and I sensed the exact same things, and so did the producers of the show when they talked about it. Two things that happened. I'm sorry that I'm laughing, but it was funny. Two things that happened was they contacted me a week prior and said, "Hey, we're gonna want you and Angel to do an interview together." I said, "Okay, I'm fine with that." Then they hit me back and they said, Angel doesn't really want to do an interview with you. And I said, okay, but, what's the big deal? It's just an interview. I said, so, we could do it on the podium with Shawn and Danny. And they said, no, that's not what we want. We want a one-on-one with you and Angel. So I guess they misled Angel into thinking that it was going to be on that podium, maybe. And we were there that day, and they said, hey, they came over to Angel, and they came over to me, and they said, we're going to have you guys, we're going to have you guys do the interview and everything. So they're putting Danny and Shawn up on the stage and everything, and they stopped us and didn't let us go up on the stage. It was Danny and Shawn. And Danny and Shawn kind of went back and forth, and I'll say Shawn won that battle. It was pretty evident to me that day when they were going back and forth that Shawn won that battle. Then they came, they put their arm around Angel's shoulder, and they led him into a room. It was like leaving him down a dark alley, led him into a room, and I was sitting in that room waiting on it. And it was just me and him. And when they sat Angel down next to me, I'm telling you, this guy, the color of his face changed. And I was more than ready because, dark alleys, nobody but me and you. Let's go. This is my thing. I'm comfortable here. This is my thing. I'm comfortable here. But he was definitely out of his comfort zone. He didn't expect anything like that, and the producers and the people after it was over with, they're like, man, we couldn't, Jim Gray, we couldn't get anything out of Angel. They couldn't get nothing out of him. He never stepped out of line. He never told a joke. He didn't do anything. He barely cracked a smile too much. I mean, he may have cracked a smile a little bit, but he was definitely not in his comfort zone. And I won that battle that day as well. He said something goofy. I forget what it was. But I said, well, why don't you give me one of those T-shirts? No. I said something goofy. I said something to him, and he said something goofy back in terms of the Danny Garcia T-shirts. And he said, I can get you one if you like one. I said, you can. And then I stood up, and I actually opened up my shirt, and it said, Showtime destroys Garcia. The TSG.
That was fun. That was funny.
He didn't do well in that. He wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
So I read that Shawn's purse for that fight was $1 million. Did he pick up the tab when you guys went out to dinner after the fight?
We didn't go to dinner after the fight. Shawn has not picked up very many tabs. Shawn wants money, a lot of money, and I'm going to have to give my money before this fight. If he doesn't give it to me, I won't be there on fight night. No. Shawn is cheap. Shawn is cheap, man. I've seen. We've sat down at tables with with 10 people, and 9 of them are his friends. One person's with me, and I've seen him get up away, walk away from the table, and expect Daddy to pay for it.
Wow. Well, you know what? That's better than buying 12 cars with your $1 million. You know, that's another reason Shawn Porter's a smart kid.
He just bought his first car.
Really?
He just bought his first car.
Yeah, what did he buy?
The cars he had to this point were cars that I bought him.
Huh.
Like I said, cheap son of a something. He is cheap. Yeah, he just bought his first car.
Okay, so your opponent on March 9 is your Denis Ugas, who's a tough Cuban, and he's the mandatory challenger. Yeah, that other guy. Tough kid, tough challenger for Shawn's WBC title. He's 23-3, 11 knockouts. What kind of a fight do you expect from this guy?
It's going to be a hard fight. I believe of all the guys that they had on the stage announcing the Fox Sports fights that were coming up, PBC and Fox, doing this big thing together, I believe of everybody that you looked up on that stage, and you can go down the list right now and tell me if I'm wrong, I believe Shawn has the toughest fight. It wasn't Keith Thurman. It's not Errol Spence. It's not, at least not on paper, it's not Errol Spence. It's not, any of those other guys that were up there, Caleb Plant. No. The toughest guy for anybody who's got to fight is Shawn. And this is going to be a very hard fight. It's not going to be easy. He's got to bring his A+ game. And he's going to have to dig deep. He's going to, he's going to have to conjure the guy that fought Keith Thurman and the guy that fought Paulie Malignaggi and the guy that fought Andre Berto, and he's going to have to pull all those guys out. The guy that fought Danny Garcia, he's going to have to do all that. But in reality, and I sit down and tell him this to his face, at this point in your career, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be able to pull from those other fights that you previously had and use those fights to propel you onto a fight like this and defeat a fighter such as this fighter. This is a very, very hard fight for him.
Interesting. Okay, you found out about this fight in November, right? Which is nice. I guess gives you plenty of time to get ready. Maybe some guys that might be a problem for, but I don't think it is with Shawn. He seems to be always focused and ready to go. How's training camp gone, and how has been the focus?
Well, honestly, and I'm a straight shooter. I'm that guy. We haven't had the type of camp to this point that we previously had in any of the fights in his career, because Shawn took on a position with Fox Sports, and he's been flying back and forth to L.A. to shoot every week. He's been that PBC Inside Boxing host. I don't know if you've seen that show. Have you guys seen that show?
Yep. No, I haven't seen it. No.
Yeah, there's some of it online now, but I mean, like, he's in studio every week. So with him splitting time, going back and forth like that, it has been a big conflict, and I just stepped back and I said, okay, you're going to make this decision, but you don't get to choose. You make the choice, but you don't get to choose the consequences. So I stepped back and let him do that, and he just finished up with those guys, and he just finished up with those guys about a week ago, and then he asked, if he could stick around and do his son's birthday, which I had no problem with. Of course, I love that, but he should have been doing a lot more and focused a lot more, but he's been splitting time with that position, and a guy such as myself, if I'm manager, I'm going to make the hard decision for you and say, listen, here's what we got to do. They're going to have to get someone else to replace you for a few weeks, and you're going to have to focus on this fight. Because if you're not focused on your fight, you're not going to hold that position very long. But I let him handle it the way he decided he wanted to handle it. So he's now in D.C. He's training with my two assistants, Barry Hunter and Hal Chernoff. And a lot of people think that me and those guys just got together, but if you were to, I go all the way back with Barry to Shawn's 10 years old. I go back with Hal. Shawn was 14 years old. Shawn had his professional debut on one of Hal's shows in Maryland. Barry was in our corner in probably the first 10 to 11 professional fights that Shawn had. So, this is not new to any of us, and we've done it for quite a while. So he's there now, and I got off the phone with him for today's training session, see how things went. I'm going to the Super Bowl this weekend, and after the Super Bowl, I will head over there and work with him and those guys, and we're going to triple up on Shawn for the next 5 weeks until we get him, into this championship fight.
Sounds good. Okay, Shawn. Yeah, Shawn was on right now. I kid him and saying he's getting old, but he's, is 147 pounds any tougher to make for him now, or is it still a very comfortable weight?
I'm gonna say he made it very easy last time. And when I say made it very easy, like leading up to this fight and all the fights that he had so many years prior to, and taking the information that I've given him, he was able to say, okay, this time you're not going to have to micromanage me. I'm going to pull this off. I'm going to get this done. And he did with no problem. I didn't have to stand on his neck, for the fight or anything. I didn't have to check him every 2-3 times a day, and he pulled it off on his own. So he did it a lot easier this time. But moving forward, as you just said, he's getting older. Metabolism is training.
Yeah.
He's got other things that have his attention now. He's got a baby. He's got a girl. He's doing his Fox Sports show. He's not sitting ringside. He's in studio doing a show. So, it's requiring a lot more of him, and that's going to require him to be even more focused. So, I don't know. I believe that if you give us the opportunity to fight Errol Spence, who we'd much rather be fighting this time than the guy we're getting ready to fight. And, as I saw Errol come out in a couple of interviews, like, we wanted to fight Shawn Porter, but I don't know what happened there. You know what happened there, Errol. You fought Mikey Garcia. Nobody's got a problem with you fighting Mikey Garcia. It's pay-per-view. You know exactly what happened there. If you give me a choice to fight Errol Spence or Ugas, I'm going to fight Errol 7 days out of the week compared to fighting a high-risk, low-reward, a guy who no one knows but is tough as nails.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, this guy is so unknown that a reporter went to a barbershop and was doing interviews in the barbershop and asking about the upcoming fights and fighters. And, of course, the barbers and people in the barbershop, they all talk about boxing all the time, or sports. Nobody knew who Ugas was.
Really? Wow.
But the kicker to that was he was in a Cuban barbershop.
Wow.
Cubans didn't know who Ugas was.
Wow.
They knew who Shawn Porter was. They knew who Danny Garcia, Keith Thurman, Errol Spence. They did not know who Ugas was.
Wow.
So much so to the point where they said they didn't know who he was, and they didn't even know if they could root for him because they don't know who he is.
Huh.
A lot of them were Shawn Porter fans.
Interesting.
So, I mean, when the barber says I'm Cuban and I don't know who that guy is, I mean, so, yeah, if we have an opportunity, you give us an opportunity to fight Errol Spence, he'll be motivated and continue to be focused to make 47. You give him an opportunity to fight Bud Crawford, he'll be motivated and he'll make 147 and he'll be strong at it. But, you know, if you're in there, I think this is anyone for that matter. If you give them situations that don't heat up their blood, if you give them situations that are not exciting, you know, there may be some letdowns. And so it's up to us in this particular camp right here to be on his ass to make sure we have no letdowns.
Okay, you just mentioned Errol Spence fight is with Mikey Garcia pay-per-view. Mikey Garcia, with Mikey Garcia. What do you see happening in that fight, Ken? Mikey against Errol Spence.
I just think Errol's too big. I've been with Errol a long time. I first started competing against Errol. I wasn't training then. I had guys that drew Errol in U.S. tournaments when Errol was like 17, 18 years old. And I traveled all over the world with Errol. I spent the whole year in Colorado with Errol. He's just a big man, a big young man when he's out of action. He will easily walk around at 185 plus pounds.
Wow, really? No kidding. I didn't realize that.
Let me tell you something else about these boxers. If they have an advantage, and I'm going to use one by name, if they have an advantage, they use their advantage, which they should use their advantage. But some of them thrive on the advantage. So there used to be a time there was a particular boxer who was fighting at 130 pounds. He was coming down from 160 to make 130. And he had figured out the way to do it, you know. He had a formula. He had a way of doing it. And then he'd go back in that 130-pound fight and weigh 156, 57 pounds. And I'd see him after on fight day dinner, you know, time to have dinner, and I'd say, how much you weigh, man? And he said, oh, Coach, I'm up to 154 right now. I'm trying to get to 160. And he'd have the biggest smile on his face. Because he was doing everything he wanted to do, eating everything, drinking everything, and he was going to go into this fight with this huge advantage. That was Adrian Broner. The problem now is he no longer has the discipline to keep his weight down to 130.
Yeah.
And now he's got to fight guys that are just as big as him, and you find out that he doesn't have what it takes.
Wow.
And so Errol is that guy that's going to come in that fight on fight night, weighing at 47, and on fight night, he's that guy that's going to come in there in a totally different 2 weight classes bigger.
Yeah.
Wow. And that's a huge advantage.
Yeah. Okay, we just saw Keith Thurman. I'm assuming that you watched his fight against Josecito Lopez last weekend. He had first fight in 22 months. What do you see happening if Keith Thurman does fight Manny Pacquiao?
You know, from what I saw, which I didn't see the whole fight, I caught round 9, 10, 11, and 12. And from what I saw of those rounds and what I heard, I think Keith needs a few more fights after coming off such a long layoff and coming off an injury. I think he needs a few more fights. I know he needs a few more fights. Whether or not he would do that over taking the next opportunity with Manny if it presented itself, I don't know. I don't know what he would do. But if he takes it in the next fight with Manny, I think it's a competitive fight. Definitely a competitive fight. I think it's going to be harder for Keith than it has to be if he was able to, again, get a number of fights under his belt and get himself all the way back. But I see him winning.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, last question for you, because I know you got packing to do for the Super Bowl. Shawn turned 31 in October. This is his 33rd fight as a pro. What's the active strategy for him right now as an active fighter? I started his exit strategy a year into this. So, and prior to that, we were already, doing a pre-warm-up, so to speak. When Shawn was 14 and 15 years old, I sent him to the University of Akron during the summers when he was out of school for communication classes. And since then, he got enrolled at the Ohio School of Broadcasting. And he was never able to fully go in and complete everything that he was supposed to do because he wound up going from this country to that country for USA Boxing. So we kept having to pull out. But I made sure that when he was part of Team USA, when he was in Colorado at the Olympic Training Center, that he took all the courses and classes on communication that they had, and it got to a point where the lady that did all of the interviews and everything, set up everything over there, Julie Goldsticker, said to me, Shawn is the only person we let speak when we leave the country because we don't want to take a chance on another country being offended in any kind of way. And he's such a good speaker that we make sure that, we send him to the radio stations or the TV stations, or he's the one we go, every time. We'll send someone else with him as well. But he's been doing this for such a long time. And the guys over at Fox Sports said he beat out everybody for this spot. So if you go take a look at what they're doing with him over there, and these are their words, quote unquote, Mr. Porter, we're going to make him a star. And I said, well, I think he's already a star. You guys just need to, make him shine brighter or give him a bigger audience. Yeah. But that is the strategy. It has been in effect for a while, and he actually has a contracted deal with them. So he's very happy with that. What I have to do is try to keep him focused on the boxing while he's still doing it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we're pre-recording this interview on Thursday, and it's going to play on Super Bowl Sunday. Who you got, Rams or Patriots?
I got the Rams or the Patriots. I'm only going for the event. I'm going for the event and be a part of the moment in the event. Just like when I went to the World Series this year, and when I went to the World Series a couple of years ago, and when I went to the Rose Bowl, I was cheering for the Ohio State Buckeyes. And I do have on Rams gear today, but that's because my favorite color is blue, and my car is blue. My dog's name is Blue. So, I want to see a great game. I want to be a part of a great game. I remember Belichick when he was in Cleveland, and I think if he's able to pull this off, him and Brady will probably ride off into the sunset. So I actually think they'll probably pull it off. Patriots will win.
Yeah. All right, man. Hey, always a pleasure talking to you. Always a pleasure talking to your son. Thanks again for being a part of our day today in the Ringside Boxing Show, and best of luck to you and Shawn on March 9th against Yordanis Ugas. Everybody gets to see that on Fox.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Stay in touch, and appreciate you guys for reaching out. Please give us another call.
All right, sounds good. Kenny Porter on the Ringside Boxing Show. Hey, do you like this show?
The other guy.
Yep, the other guy. The one and only Kenny Porter. Hey, you like the show? Do us a favor. Tell other boxing fans about us. Post us on your social media and help us grow. And if you have not yet discovered the #1 website in the world for daily boxing news, you're missing out. We update ringsideboxingshow.com every day, 365 days a year with the hottest headlines and biggest stories. If you're a hardcore boxing fan, this should be your first stop every morning. It might be the only boxing website you need to visit all day long. Check it out now, and you will be amazed, I guarantee it. RingsideBoxingShow.com. Thanks, as always, to our expert analysts, Travis Hartman, Rizwaan Zahid, and my partner here, John J. Raspanti, as well as our outstanding British correspondent, Paul McLaughlin, and another huge thanks as well to Kenny Porter, trainer, manager, and father of two-time welterweight king, Showtime Shawn Porter, who you will see March 9th on Fox. And, of course, we totally appreciate you, Ringside Nation, for being a part of our worldwide audience again today. Keep your chin tucked, and we'll talk to you again next week on the Ringside Boxing Show.
It's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass. It's a bad day, so you better get off my back, 'cause you might get cold cocked if you cross my path. It's a great day for me to whoop somebody's ass.
The moderator has left the conference.